Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals come to learn the most efficient and powerful ways to grow their accounting firms, sharpen their sales skills, and really have a path to creating consistent increased revenue. I cover topics from networking, pricing, ideal clients, how to handle objections, how to handle you're too expensive, and how to set boundaries with clients so you can stop giving away your time and expertise away for free and really start getting paid your value and your worth. You'll learn tips and strategies and also hear personal interviews from successful accounting professionals and others in the industry. This podcast will show you exactly how to create the firm and life of your dreams full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. Our special guest is an expert on determining reasonable compensation for closely held business owners, and he's educated more than 100,000 financial professionals on this topic and has been published in numerous national and state journals. When he is not in the office, he enjoys spending time with his wife and his chocolate lab and pup, hiking the backcountry of Colorado and paddling on the scenic lakes and rivers. But before we welcome our special guest to the show, if you're an accounting, tax, or bookkeeping firm owner and you crumble at the thought of your next upcoming sales call, or you're constantly worried that you're going to go blank or come across pushy to a prospect, I have a system for you. As a firm owner, I know the paralyzing fears of imposter syndrome that you must feel. And maybe you're new to your niche. Maybe you just feel like you're pretending to be an expert, or the frustration of the calls make you go crazy and then you just get ghosted afterward anyways, and you want to throw up your hands and maybe throw in the towel. Here at the Abundant Accountant, I show you a simple step-by-step sales process so you never aimlessly wing it again. I'll give you a blueprint and a formula for communicating your true value with confidence, even if accounting seems boring to talk about to your clients. Book a call at theabundantcall.com, and I'll show you exactly how to take control back of every sales conversation, be able to close more clients with confidence and ease, and end the second guessing over your pricing for good. And you'll finally be able to stop trading time for dollars and start growing your firm on your terms. So book your complimentary strategy call with myself and my team over at theabundantcall.com. And now let's welcome our very special guest, Paul Hamann, to the show. Welcome, Paul, to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here again with us here on the Abundant Accountant Podcast. But Paul, for those people and listeners who own an accounting, tax, or bookkeeping firm who do not know you, why don't you share real quick a little bit about who you are and what you do? I've already done your intro and bio, but I always think it's better to just come directly from you.
Yeah, no worries. So my entire world revolves around reasonable compensation. Been doing it for, I think, 15 years, and prior to that, I was in the world of compensation. And about 12 years ago now, we founded a company called RCReports that determines reasonable compensation for closely held business owners. And so what our firm does is provide reports to folks in the accounting industry, bookkeeping industry, et cetera, to use with their clients. And then I educate and speak on reasonable compensation all around the country.
Awesome. Love it. And I know we have done an episode already on reasonable comp and what firm owners have charged, but I thought today we could focus specifically on, Paul, a lot of people and firm owners do a lot of free work and they don't charge for it. And one area specifically that many firm owners do not charge for is entity planning. So, moving Schedule C or LLC to an S Corp, or I know there's some stuff on the compliance side. But I'd love it if we dive into why do you feel, before we get into how you help fix it, why do you feel firm owners do this work for free and they don't charge for it?
I've tried to figure that out over the years, and I have a couple of insights. I can't tell you if they're valid or not, but most
That's
of the
okay.
accountants I've met over the years, they're just the nicest, most wonderful people, and they truly, truly want to help their clients. And so when the phone rings and they pick it up and they have a question or their clients come to them, they're not necessarily already set up to monetize that. And it just ends up happening kind of organically for free. And so I see that quite a bit happening. And then the other thing that I notice is they don't really have a good process or approach to monetize entity planning. And so I think having the latter kind of keeps the first one from happening.
Yeah. And I think when we have a lack of systems in place and a lack of processes in place, like you said, many firm owners, I would say all, I've never met a firm owner that didn't truly want to help their client and just out of the goodness of their heart just starts answering all their questions because they know the answers. And then we end up doing it for free. But I think a lot of times, if you own an accounting, tax, or bookkeeping firm, you want your bank account to also increase. And that's what we're going to talk about today on how can you do this entity planning, but like you said, have a approach to monetize it. So, Paul, what would be the first thing that you've seen in helping a firm owner, if you've got one specifically, where they went from just doing it for free and not able to monetize this and not having a good process and helping lots of clients do all this stuff complimentary, and they put a stop to it and they realized that, okay, I need to make a change. I need to do something different. And here's what I did.
So we had a firm who was a subscriber of RCReports for quite a while, and they were really using our software for compliance. So their current grouping of S Corps, they would talk with them, get a reasonable comp report, and get their comp set so that they were compliant each and every year. But when it came to the entity planning piece, they didn't necessarily have a good process in place to look at the different companies that they were working with that weren't S Corp. So like you said, your Schedule Cs, LLCs. And so they worked with our customer success director, Austin, and Austin said, hey, look, take a look at this process and this tool that we built into our software. It's there for you. It's no extra charge, but you can take a look at an LLC and you can run an analysis and for your client and determine whether it actually makes sense for them to switch over to an S Corp or not. And so in demonstrating the tool, there's a number of different inputs that you need, including reasonable compensation, but there's other inputs that are built in there for the advisor, such as payroll. If they're not doing payroll right now and you want to offer that service, you can put a fee in for that. They're not doing an 1120S now, so if you plan on offering them an 1120S, you can put that fee in, and you can also put in an analysis fee and other costs and adjustments as needed. But with a click of a button, you're going to be able to demonstrate to your client, let's assume this is a client that should be an S Corp to take advantage of payroll savings, that what that advantage is and a dollar figure attached to it. And then this report will then look out 10 years. And it's a really powerful deliverable to an LLC that should become an S Corp, because that 10-year outlook in some cases can be tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, really depending on where their business is. So it's a great deliverable. It already has your fees built into it, and it's a real easy sign off. Once the business owner sees it, like, I'm going to save how much? Yeah, go ahead and do it. And at that same time, you've picked up an 1120S return each year, payroll client, if that's also what you offer. And then whatever your analysis fee on that's going to be. And so they really turned RCReports into, they were already charging for the compliance piece, but this is a whole different level of reoccurring revenue for payroll and 1120S, and then one-time analysis for the report. So with a single analysis, they would easily, I'd not like to use round numbers when we're when we're talking,
Yes.
but let's just say 2000 and 2000 for payroll and 1120s each year. So they've added $4,000 of reoccurring revenue, and they charged $1,500 for the analysis. So that's a real quick $5,500.
Wow. Yeah. And across how many clients did they have like that opted in to meeting with them to have this analysis first, which you said was $1,500 is what they charge for the analysis? Do you know how many clients opted in? Because that's the total for sure revenue. And then some. So in that case study with the firm that you were mentioning, how many did they end up doing?
So they had roughly 20, I think 20 to 25 S corps that they were already working with. But when they were looking through their other pass-through entities, Schedule Cs and LLCs, without doing the analysis, their quick calculation is they had somewhere around 30 or 35 that would be worth doing the analysis on.
Wow.
And so I think they ended up converting, or at least presenting to convert, about 25 of those. So whatever your 25 times 1,500 number was. And then, of course, any new clients they pick up throughout the year. But just in analysis fees, they picked up about $37,500.
Yeah. And that's a significant increase to the top line, but it also helps the clients out. So, what did you hear as far as feedback that they had from their 25 clients that opted in just even for the analysis?
The biggest piece of feedback that we received was the entity planning report. It's just a simple 2-page report that shows the inputs and then the savings in year 1 through the next 10 years, and having that deliverable in front of them so they can visualize it. You can talk to them about how much they may or may not save all day long, but there's just something about a deliverable or a visual, and that's what they loved.
Yeah. And I mean, this firm just off the 25 clients generated 37,000, but if even half of those opted into the reoccurring revenue of $4,000 a month, right? I think that's what you said if you offer the payroll and other. So that could have been, another 48,000 a year, or is the 4,000 in reoccurring revenue for the whole year?
So it was 4,000 for the year. So that was just payroll service and the 1120s preparation. But that was for this firm that was just starting to get into that. Other firms that do reoccurring revenue with their clients kind of use a different model for entity planning that still creates the $37,500, but then they use a reoccurring revenue model each month for their clients, which is also very successful. This company did a little differently, but they added $4,000 of annual.
Annual, right. But even 4,000 in, let's just say they had 25 do the analysis. So even if half of them opted into the $4,000, a year with the payroll, that's another 68,000. So just between the two, it's over $100,000 of additional revenue that they have increased from their current existing clients. This is not even going out and doing new lead generation, no new marketing. This is simply from spending more time with our current clients and meeting with them and doing entity planning, even if it's as simple as you're talking about, using a software, something like what you've created at RCReports.
Yeah, and we created the entity planning tool because so many of our subscribers were trying to somehow demonstrate to their other pass-through entities that this was worth doing. And so it really came to us from our users.
Clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what have you seen on the compliance side? I know that you wanted to talk a little bit about that as well.
So on the compliance side, what we've seen with a lot of firms is their reluctance to bill for it, or they ask their client if they want to do it, that type of thing. And I think if you asked your client if they wanted to pay taxes too, they'd probably say no. But this is a necessary compliance issue.
Correct.
And so the success that we've seen with the compliance side when you're working with S Corps, there's a couple of different ways to monetize it. One is just simply add it to your 1120S package. I'm okay with that. I think there's better ways to monetize that but I would say the firms that we've seen do that successfully typically add maybe $500 to each 1120S, and they include that reasonable comp analysis.
Okay. And what does that look like if a firm were to, give you a call today and say, hey, Paul, I heard you and Michelle talking. This sounds like a great idea, a way for me to increase my current revenue right now. What would that process look like? Let's say they had, 100 clients.
Yeah, so if they were looking at running roughly 100 reports a year, we'd want to do a quick meeting and demo with them, but they'll end up in an enterprise platform with that level of usage. And their report cost is probably going to be around $49 a piece. And I strongly encourage anybody running a report for any client to be at least $500. $1,000 would probably be more appropriate.
Yeah, I was going to say 1,000. So what would that conversation with their current client look like? Like, how would you bring this up to a current client, for example?
So with a current client, what I'd let them know is that compliance on reasonable compensation is heating up. We need to have this documented, because once we have this documented and documented with a credible source, then we've met our burden of proof. So if the IRS asks, we can just push this across. But in addition, what we also find out is if you're paying too much, we're going to be able to save you a little bit on payroll. If you're paying too little, we're going to remove that risk of an IRS challenge and recharacterization. And so as part of the 1120S package now, that report generation is part of that. And like I said, add at least $500 to that cost. If you're running these as one-off reports outside of a package price, I would say start at about $1,000 and then look at how much more consulting you may or may not do. And the reason I recommend that is if you send your clients to us, and we have some CPAs who don't want to do that, so they send their clients to us directly, we're going to charge them $500, but we're not going to do any consulting or any advisory on that. We're just simply going to provide them the report and the analysis.
If they pay $1,000, let's just say, and you run the report, and you would follow that up with a 30-minute explanation as to how this will benefit your client. And are there any other upsell opportunities that you've seen from case studies of firms that have really implemented your tool and your process in order to monetize this on all fronts in the firm?
Yeah, great question. I hadn't thought about that in a while, but we had a firm that really wanted to provide fractional CFO services. And so knowing what those services would be or how to have that discussion with the client was a bit awkward. But what they found out was with RCReports, when you go through the questionnaire, they found it really beneficial to walk through the questionnaire with their client and discuss the different hats they were wearing. And as they started discussing the different hats they were wearing, opportunities would pop up to offer different services, especially around accounting and financial work and analysis. And so they really use the reports as
like a guide almost.
Yeah. And for them, I think we're charging little or nothing for the reports, but at the end, ending up with an engagement for fractional CFO services.
Wow.
That was their model, and they loved it for that, because getting a good conversation starter, when you start talking with a business owner and they get so passionate about their business and the hats they wear and the hats they don't like wearing or don't understand or need help with, and you can offer that service. And so that was a really fascinating case study to talk with that company and just how they use the online interview to generate those opportunities.
Got it. Yeah. And do you know how many new fractional CFO clients they brought on a monthly basis versus how many client meetings they had going through your report and using that as the conversation tool?
This was a couple of years ago that I spoke with them. Now they're still a subscriber and going strong, but when I spoke with them, I think they had had success in, I want to say, 8 to 12 so far.
Okay, so 8 to
And
12 new engagements.
yeah, and I can't
Wow.
and their engagements were really dependent on the services they provide. So I would love to quote you a number, but I
It's
think
okay. I
they're
mean, 8 to
I
12, that's
yeah.
basically one new big engagement per month of fractional CFO services, where I believe it should at least be a few thousand to 5 to 7,500 a month, depending on the company and what you're doing. But that's a different conversation for another time.
Well, if I remember right, I think they had kind of three basic packages, but they would also customize or tailor them a little bit. But you're
Mm.
right. Back then, I think the one of I think the lowest one started at like 750 a month, and then went up to I think 2,500 or 3,000 a month. So, yeah, they were picking up, and this is the work they wanted to do and loved to
Yep.
do.
Oh, that's a great. I mean, I think that's also a great tool. And again, for firm owners who are listening, this doesn't require any money on marketing, any time marketing. This just is bringing more value to your current clients.
Yeah, it's the unexpected conversation starter. We
Mm.
found that out again kind of by accident talking with our subscribers, going through the online interview and looking at all, like I said, all the different hats. It's just a natural conversation starter that a lot of accountants sometimes struggle with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think a guide to the conversation is also an area of struggle. I see it on the sales side of things when we don't have our sales process written out. We don't know what to say to a client. We freeze up. We get nervous. We don't know what to say. Where this could be a guide for someone who is meeting with current compliance clients or anyone who, has a Schedule C or LLC and saying, okay, this is an opportunity for me to use this tool to guide to upsell into higher level packages, fractional CFO services, maybe some tax planning, and other opportunities that would have never popped up when we're going 80 miles an hour from client to client without a breath.
Yeah, very, very true. And so that was a breath of fresh air to kind of learn that over the years and how our clients were using it from just different standpoints. If we have a little bit of time, one of my favorite
Yeah.
models that folks use is that monthly reoccurring revenue, where they set up the client on a monthly,
Okay.
right, $500, $1,000 a month,
Mm-hmm.
and those clients will tend to include in whatever that package is at least one reasonable comp analysis, if not two. And
Mm-hmm.
because they've now set up this monthly cadence, let's just say $1,000 a month, they can now schedule that conversation with their client because the client is expecting those quarterly or monthly
Mm-hmm.
touch points, then go in, have that reasonable compensation conversation, run through the analysis, and generate, again, additional revenue depending on if the client has or needs anything else. And so kind of including that as a line item in your $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month package price, if you're doing subscription packaging, has also been really successful.
Hmm. Okay. And what have you seen, like an exact firm that you've seen make this transition? If you can give a little bit more context around that.
Yeah, so there was a firm here recently we were just talking with to see how it was going.
Okay.
And so they already had almost all of their clients on subscription. And what they were then now taking a look at, now that they had kind of made that transition, is as they met with their LLC, Schedule C clients, that they could have that entity planning conversation. And as they had that conversation, they would build out the planner
Yep.
into the same numbers we talked about earlier, 2,000, 2,000, 1,500. And those same subscription clients would then either change their subscription because they're not a pass-through, now they're an S Corp, that subscription price might go up, but they also were getting the analysis fee on top of that.
And do you know roughly the revenue increase or any numbers that you can share?
Yeah, so they were looking through their files. They saw, I want to say, this is a weird number to remember, but I want to say they identified 43
Wow.
um, pass-throughs that they wanted to have the conversation with. When we were working with them, they had already been successful on five. I think they were five of six so far,
To
but they were
move to
still setting
the
up.
subscription.
They were already subscription, but they were now moving over to a higher priced subscription because they were no longer pass through. They're now an S corp, and that was
Yep.
a higher subscription price, and paid the $1,500 analysis fee.
Yep. Love it.
So
I mean, this is just opens up so many opportunities. And from the sales side of things, Paul, for the firm owners that I hear a lot is, what are other ideas that we can use to offer more services, upsell to our current clients? Because the cost of keeping a current client and increasing the revenue is zero. The client acquisition cost to go get a new client is high, depending on if you're doing Google ads, Facebook ads, SEO, or are you doing organic marketing? Marketing, there's always going to be a cost on the front end before you can figure out, okay, here's my client acquisition cost if they pay X number of dollars over the year. So I think this is a beautiful opportunity and something that I believe every firm owner should be looking at, using, doing as the tool to guide the conversation if you kind of freeze up and don't really know what to say. Is there anything else, Paul, that you'd love to share that maybe we didn't touch on yet?
really, I would just leave the folks listening with this is accountants really light up when they are able to have a substantive conversation with their client and when they can show them how to save tens of thousands of dollars and it's a win-win for the firm owner as well. They just get so excited about that. Their first one is a big win and they see how repeatable it is and they just pull up their list of clients and go through that. And although I can't give you statistics on this because I haven't really followed up, there is a cost to marketing. But when you save a client tens of thousands of dollars and they talk with other small business owners, it's great to get that referral.
It is. It's definitely great to get the referral. What do you see, Paul, as the thing that hinders someone to actually start having these conversations with current clients?
I would say setting up that interview with the client. Mm-hmm. Hey, look, we got to do your reasonable comp. Let's set up a time on Zoom and let's walk through the interview. Right? That's super low pressure, super low risk. Hey, we just need to do this. But once you're in there, the conversation just naturally occurs. And all of a sudden it becomes very comfortable.
What have you found that helps the firm owner get through that hump, of picking up the phone and calling their current clients?
I always recommend that they just do a quick run through with another accountant in their firm, their assistant. If there's nobody else in their firm, find a friend and just send that interview link out, link in with them, and then just walk through it once. Because once you see how simple it is, and even if it's just a buddy of yours you're going through with it, your buddy's going to ask some questions and you're going to get into it. Yeah. And it's going to take away that unknown fear. And as soon as you remove that unknown fear, setting up those meetings becomes a pretty easy process.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, I just don't have that fear, but I know that fear is real and live for many firm owners. So, we don't want to get paralyzed by those feelings and just shut down. This is a massive opportunity to increase revenue, upsell the current clients, and really look at each client from a different lens and a different point of view. So thank you, Paul, for sharing that. Is there anything else that you'd love to share before we sign off for today?
The only other thing I would share with you, because you just mentioned that there can be some fear or hesitation, is this is an unforced conversation. It's just a natural part of kind of going through that interview. So it shouldn't feel like there's pressure or needing to be prepared. You're simply just talking about what they do in their business. It's just really comfortable.
Yeah. I do have another question that just popped up in my head. What are the consequences of a client if they do not do this with their clients, with what the IRS is doing now and, those kinds of changes? If this does not get done, what are the consequences that you've seen and what the IRS is currently doing to business owners on audits?
So on audit, what we've seen, and audits are coming from, I think, probably 3 or 4 main places, right? A direct reasonable comp challenge through one of their programs, an 1120S audit, any kind of a payroll audit, 1099 versus W-2. They've been trained to ask about reasonable comp if it's an S corp, and so I'll give you an example. This happened down in Florida. They were going through a 1099 audit to see if the contractors at a nail salon should be contractors, and they should be. They passed that because it was a S corp. The examiner asked how the owner came up with their reasonable comp figure, and the owner's like, I don't know, just it's what we decided on. So the examiner said okay, and then sent a change notice because they had no backup on the figure. It was $40,000 roughly. They changed it to 80, and that was, that's a lot.
Significant.
That's significant. So it's about, I want to say it's about $2,500 per 10,000 you're off is taxes, penalty, and interest. I think that's it roughly, or 3,000, something like that.
So that's like 25%.
Yeah.
That's significantly high.
Oh yeah, it's a huge amount of money, right? Because it's the taxes, the penalty, and the interest on that. So anyway, long story short, they ended up running a report from us. And this is really weird because this almost never happens, because when the business owner pulls a number out of thin air or somehow estimates one without any kind of credible backup, very rarely do our reports come anywhere close to the number they use, but this one did. And so they showed it to the examiner. The examiner was like, oh, all right, I guess I see where you're coming from now. And they ended up sending him a no change.
Oh, wow. So your report was their backup that proved whatever they came up with on their own now had relevance behind it and significance.
Yeah, that's not typically what happens. Typically, our report will come in and be the voice of reason, and they'll negotiate an answer.
Right.
But when the report is on hand already and you hand it to the examiners, knock on wood, every time that has happened, they just check it off their sheet and move on because you've done exactly what they've asked. But it is expensive for the business owner. Just taxes, penalty, and interest is 25 to 30% for each 10,000, so 2,500 to 3,000. Preparers themselves can get a penalty from the IRS on that.
Without a reasonable comp report.
So if the IRS challenges the number and they think that the preparer should have known better on its face, they didn't think the reasonable comp was reasonable. Oh, this guy works full-time in his firm, you knew that, and is making $500,000 a year, and he's paying himself $24,000 a year, and you sign the return. Yeah, we're hitting you with a $5,000 preparer penalty.
Whoa.
And so, yeah, preparers, actually, you guys have some skin in the game too, and that's always a great one to use with your clients. Hey, look, I have skin in the game here. We're not moving forward unless we have a report on you.
Right. Wow. That is fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, I think that's even more of a reason why I think your tool is needed. It's not only helpful on the sales side, but it also helps protect you as the preparer and also your clients, and letting them know about these consequences, because there's so many people like me, we don't understand these things. Regular taxpayers are looking to you as the firm owner to educate, and I think this is a very small investment for a very high payoff.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are using RCReports, it should be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, ROI app in your stable.
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you, Paul, so much for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It was such an honor to have you, and looking forward to maybe having you back again in the future. So thank you again.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Michelle. I always love being on.
Thank you all so much for joining Paul and I here on another amazing episode of the Abundant Accountant podcast. And I never want you to miss any revenue. I believe truly that this tool is such a valuable asset to your firm. I don't even know the investment or what you would need to pay Paul or RCReports, but I do know that the amount of revenue that you can bring to your firm and to have the guide and the guidance of the report to take people through these sales conversations is a game changer. So if you're an accounting, tax, or bookkeeping firm owner and you want to end the trading time for dollars conversation and also let go of overly demanding clients that don't value and don't pay you what you're worth and boost your revenue, here's what I've got for you. At The Abundant Accountant, we show you how to have a firm full of ideal clients who value your time so you can catapult your firm to the next level and just work the hours you want to work while still having plenty of free time every week for yourself and your family. And not only that, I'm going to show you how to do all of this in a way that just feels simple, effortless, and automatic, just like Paul's RC reports. So if you want us to show you exactly how to do this and go through a customized blueprint, book your strategy call with me and my team at theabundantcall.com right now. And we look forward to speaking to some of you soon. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next episode.